Aries and James. Hi guys, back again, Aries and Gems.
Hi, I'm Aries,
And I'm Gems.
and welcome to another episode of Aries and Gems.
Whoop. How are you?
I'm alright. How are you?
Bit hot, but that's alright. This week, we just wanted to come from a different angle and talk about feminism, feminist thinking, and I think it's come off the bat of a couple of social media posts and content about feminism and what it means and how it's been interpreted and what people think of it, and just between us, like what we think of it and what we think of feminists and just our kind of take on it, really.
Yeah, a little backstory. So Gems is like a self-declared feminist.
I didn't say that.
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? It's either you know or you don't.
Well,
So
I do know.
I'll say it for
You're a
myself.
self-declared feminist,
So
and
what it
I'm
is,
a self-declared. I'm a self. No, I'm a. When someone calls you something, a so-called misogynist. So the feminist and the misogynist have a difference of opinions.
okay, so that's one view of it. Someone who wants it to be controversial,
No, I'm
but
not. No, like I'm not really a misogynist.
yeah,
Just to
and
make
I'm
it
not
clear,
really a self-proclaimed feminist, but I do
that's
agree
just
with
a joke.
some. Yeah, I do agree with some ideologies. I do agree with some practices. There's books I've read. There's talks I've listened to, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. And yeah, we're just here to kind of talk about it. So you said that was the joke.
Yeah, about the misogynist and the feminist coming
Have
together
you
to have a discussion about feminism.
have you had that before? Someone saying you're a misogynist. Does that ring true? Have you heard someone say that to you
Yeah, it
before?
depends what I'm saying. It depends if I'm trolling,
Mm.
like on social. No, never in real life. Apart from the other day, got
Yeah.
called a misogynist
The other day.
yeah by a Gemini.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, got called a misogynist.
They use those words.
They wanted to.
Oh, okay.
They couldn't get it out.
Okay.
So they took offense because I said that it's a red flag when if you're dating someone and they use the term, I mean, they use the word misogynist.
Mm.
It's a red flag. You've got to cut them off.
Yeah, I think you'd cut someone off just for using a word that you've implied in your head means something that they don't even know about.
Yeah.
So it's like if someone says the word patriarchy, would they get the same treatment?
Not really, because that's not really a buzzword. That's not really a red flag word yet. It's
Okay.
like, you know how like some people have made Tory a red flag word?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're talking to someone and then they declare that they're a Tory. Someone might
Declaring
be
that you're a
like,
Tory is, let me just call you out on that. Declaring you're a Tory is different to using the word Tory.
yeah, kind of. But like if someone's like, mm, yeah, it is fair enough.
Because someone can use the word misogynist because maybe they're just schooling themselves on sociology, on like different
No, it means they've been indoctrinated.
ideologies.
They've been indoctrinated by
Would
the
you, okay, let me ask it a
the
different
rogue
way.
feminist campaign.
Would you date someone with a Twitter account?
They couldn't, yeah, but they couldn't be like active on it. They,
As in last seen
yeah, they
2018?
couldn't be in comments arguing. They could have a Twitter account just to follow the news and to like kind of laugh, or if they're
Mm.
active, and they got like 28,000 tweets on there. I think they even took down the tweet count on people's pages now.
Oh,
I
I
think there
don't,
might
I
have been a
don't
campaign.
go anymore on Twitter.
No, the other day I was looking
Mm.
to see how much tweets someone had posted, but it didn't have it on there. I was thinking maybe it's because I'm using an iPhone that it didn't have
Maybe.
it on there.
I think it's good that they, so it doesn't show the breadth of how much
Yeah,
they've been, but it
yeah,
still shows how long they've been on Twitter.
I'm not sure.
Oh,
Can't remember. But I've deleted the app now, so
yeah.
I can't even check.
I mean, I get it. I definitely couldn't. I don't know. If I date someone and I found out they left comments on like porn sites to be like, oh, this video gets me going, and they literally had an account, and sometimes they'd make contributions and they
Do
comment.
you read the comments on the porn sites?
Um, Only when the link's not working. Then I look to see if it's just me.
Oh,
But yeah, so I see what you mean
I
about
look.
someone's
Yeah.
social and online presence. Yeah.
But yeah, can you what would you describe feminism as? And let's see if we have the difference of opinion of what feminism is.
Yeah. So I know, okay, so in my head, I know the dictionary definition, but
Mm.
from what I believe, I think it's sisterhood and bringing women to kind of respect and understand and just keep the ladder up for each other and really just recognize that patriarchy as a whole and in terms of like sexism and classism, there's so many things to like keep people down, and the one thing that we can actually try every day to just like keep in mind is that like we can be powerful together with sisterhood, and that doesn't just mean that it's only for women to do it. I think it's also for men to recognize also that women are strong together and they're not all in cahoots and whispering and plotting. You know, it's like actually it's strong, and we need allyship with men for sisterhood to work. That's my kind of definition of it, but I know theoretically, academically, it means equality for sexes. And that equality is through policies, that's through to uprooting patriarchy, classism, systems of oppression. And because I don't know anyone in my daily life that is for oppression and for torment, but they wouldn't consider themselves as a feminist, even though they're fighting the same thing. So to kind of put a little ribbon on it, my definition is about sisterhood.
I had the concept of feminism is about like women building themselves up in business and creating safe spaces for other women. But isn't that like? But you wasn't really in agreement with that. But doesn't that go against what you were saying about sisterhood? Wouldn't that be the best way for sisterhood to form? Is for them
I don't think.
their institutions to be empowered, because everything
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, when it comes to business and institutions, everything doesn't have to have the final approval from men or masculinity. Like there should be spaces that women have built up, and they should be able to make the ultimate decisions
Yeah.
based on it.
And there should be opportunities, but I don't. I think that should be opportunities within what they want to do and their own industries, and not just talking about work, but outside of that, like they should be able to have those kind of those opportunities, but also like not have to go off and do their own thing for it to be valid as a sisterhood. Like a sisterhood could be, you know, an example could be like a group of women in engineering actually like working together, supporting each other, but not having to go off and create their own firm because, oh, you know, it's us against everyone else. It's like, no, we can actually lead and excel within a company with other engineers, you know, young, old, black, white, male, female, it shouldn't matter. But you've got the support, but you don't have to go outside of your industry to craft your own thing
But
for it to
then
be sisterhood.
if it's like male dominated, so
It
like
shouldn't
let's
matter.
say it's 99% male dominated industry, how do they then imprint on that industry, like the one
I think it
percent?
chips away at time. Like same with racism. Like I think it chips away at time in time, and also it's not going to be maybe something you'll see even in your lifetime, but it needs to be something that you can contribute towards and know that okay, my imprint is bigger than me and what I think. It's about what I leave behind, the example that I set, and I think things like male dominated industries, like I think all of that is changing more and more. I think it's changing, and I think ultimately, because there's a lot of things that are due to sexism and patriarchy that men themselves don't enjoy. Like, don't enjoy the pressures of feeling like I need to be a provider. I need to kind of always have a plan and a strategy for my family, and like there's a lot of pressures on men And I think if men actually kind of came together more in terms of a brotherhood, that would help a lot in terms of mental health, in terms of talking about ambition and working together and constructive criticism. I think this idea of like supporting each other within the kind of within industries, within the same playing fields, and not having to go off and do your own thing because it's me against everyone else. This kind of competitive landscape, I don't think is as healthy as making an imprint somewhere and allowing yourself to actually really be seen in a different way than just like, oh, I'm the marginalized female in this male oriented business. Like, no, I can actually come forward, be seen, be a leader, and it shouldn't have anything to do with my gender.
But don't you think you could more be seen if you go off and create something
You
that
can.
is equally, like, for example, Microsoft was a powerhouse, then Apple's come along, and Apple's done something different and become a powerhouse instead of like helping Microsoft become a superpower. Isn't that equally like? Wouldn't that be more? So in terms of technology, having Microsoft and Apple as competition makes for better technology and makes
Yeah.
for the acceleration of like technology becoming better. Wouldn't that be the same if like so someone wants to go off and start something else instead of integrating into what they believe is oppressive and trying to change it from within? If they go off create something else, doesn't that create the competition that forces that company to change, because then they're behind. If someone starts
Yeah.
something new and is progressive with the way that they do things, like they're not sexist, they don't rely on patriarchy to run their company and stuff, and more people join that, align themselves with that way of thinking, doesn't that make for like a better society?
Yeah, I see what you mean. You kind of setting by example and saying, look how we're doing it differently. And then maybe with them looking more progressive, those other companies look
Yeah,
like
they have to follow suit,
outdated.
because it's like a company now can't now promote, we don't do sustainable energy, we don't sustainably use sustainable materials for the products we make.
Yeah,
Like it started off with one company being a niche company that said, you know what, we're gonna save the planet,
make a stand.
and now
Yeah,
everyone's on board with it now. Even if they're not, they've been forced on board because people's now not gonna, investors are not gonna invest with, investors are like now, is this
yeah.
sustainable?
They're
We
looking
don't want
for
to
that
align
angle.
ourselves with that. So that's like a benefit of going off on your own, like, and starting something to change ultimately the bigger picture instead of trying to change it from
From
within,
within.
which is harder.
I think you need both. I think, yeah, I did mention like, I think it's both that we need. Like, we need people actively changing things from within as well as doing their own things. But even in doing your own thing, and this is someone from my perspective, like, I set up and was self-employed for a period, and even though I thought, oh, I can manage myself, I can, establish my own workforce, I still have to work with other people, I still have to work with clients, my accountant, HMRC, insurance. There's other factors, investors, there's other things you have to think of.
But
Even if you're a female dominated business, say you're like a marketing agency and
yeah,
you're going about it in a very like anti-sexist way, and you're really kind of hiring that kind of policy, making sure people have like the same kind of beliefs and values systems as you, even with that, you still have to answer to investors and tradespeople. Like, there's so many other auxiliary factors that for you to feel like you're just in this bubble where it's going to be all female, it's going to be all, and it's not even just female, it could be men who are actually for that movement and for that ideology. Like, they shouldn't be shut out because
yeah,
they could actually offer something if they're about that anti-sexist thinking, and they're for the movement, they're for the understanding, that they should be allowed in. So I don't think it should just be going off doing your own thing in silo. I think real strength and change comes with collaboration. But I do think maybe from the beginnings it needs to start slow. There are a couple mentorship schemes like Albright Academy, Step Up Sorority. These are like female-led mentorship groups. But if some of those people that are mentored by other women and supported go off to, change the perspectives within a Microsoft or do their own thing, both for me are valid. Both for me are is sisterhood and show growth. It's not a kind of one's better than the other. I think yeah, and I would love to even see more brotherhood. I would love to see more men coming together and thinking, actually, this is how we can kind of start breaking down those shackles of expectations and pressures, and like, all this you hear about, like, men more likely to like go through with like suicide, and like the support that men need. Like, it's like, actually, maybe if one thing that feminism can do is show an example of actually how much we do need different support structures, because we're living in a very classist patriarchal world, and if you're not about that, then you probably are a feminist without even knowing it.
Yeah, so but a feminist kind of if a feminist covers everything but fights ultimately for the women's rights, isn't that like a what was the word that they used in 1984? Double think. Isn't that like double think? It's like it's contradictory because it's feminism but fights for the rights of men. That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, for fighting for like equal rights, and I think the thing is, like, it's not that it's a contradiction. It's just that, like, with any movement, things just get misunderstood, and sometimes things get too like academic.
I think that's intentional though. Because if something, if it, I would more support something that says we fight for women's rights because that then it's clear. If we, saying fighting for equality of the sexes is not really clear because then it means because most feminists, let's say, will be female. They're then fighting for the rights of men. It's like female led. It will be like
What's wrong with that?
it'll be like white people fighting for the rights of black people, but they
But
don't know
there's
what
lots
black
of
people.
inventions that have been made for women, like bras and corsets and shoes, by men. So, like, it's always been an overlap with like agendas, and whether you're male or female, like, you could still be a woman and fight for paternity leave and mental health for men, and support for men. Like, it shouldn't matter, I don't think.
But then it becomes another movement. Like men, there's a movement, and men going their own way that fight for like men's right to. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. Men's right not to. Can't give a definition, but they're a movement and they fight for men.
Yeah.
They're very clear about. They don't say we're fighting for women as well.
Well, that's fine. That's
So
not, that's
shouldn't
them. That's not feminism. That's,
so how has feminism become associated with women?
because of how it was initially brought to the attention, and the mass media, they didn't want to, at the time, didn't want to talk about race and the black women and the diverse people within feminist movements. They wanted to hone in on like white women, and particularly on like things like abortion, when other feminists want to talk about, unwanted C-sections, hysterectomies, fertility problems. There's so many other things, but it's honed in on bra burning, lesbian, white women. Like, it's very like the media have crafted this narrative of this is what feminism is, and which is actually quite convenient to misunderstand something if you're given just one picture of it. So I think it just got skewed in the year, because this goes back to like, maybe, I don't know, my feminist theory and stuff is a bit light, but this goes back, like, I want to say 60s. And in those days, you weren't seeing feminism on TV. You weren't seeing it like billboarded. People weren't really educated about it. Even now in schools, like, you're not really properly educated about it. So it just has this ambiguity, and a lot of things that have this ambiguity, like spirituality, because people don't really understand it, it can have this imprint in people's mind that just think, oh, that's not really for me because I don't. But really, they just don't understand it. And I think feminism has been painted with that same brush of ambiguity, that people make a judgment on it without really going deep into what it is. Because most of the time, you're talking to someone, you're actually agreeing with them, then you find out they're a feminist. It's like, oh, wait, that's where we, this was fun, but And it shouldn't be, because up until that point you were agreeing on the same things.
Yeah, because feminists come with a personality trait.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, for the most part, some of them they can come across as bitter. They can come across as man hating. A
Yeah.
lot of feminists can because of certain feminist indoctrines and ideologies. So it's kind of understandable if someone wants to be like, you know what, I'm not really trying to be around a feminist. I don't want to argue every day. I
But
want to
every
do.
movement has its radicals. Have you not heard of a movement that's had 1 or 2% of people that have
No,
gone on and done something crazy, and you're just like, oh, that's not us. That's not the
but
rest of us.
it doesn't
Don't
really
judge
mean it
us.
doesn't really mean radical because it could just mean
There are
something.
radicals out there
It
within
no, it could just
feminism.
be something as simple as you're talking and you say female, and they'd be like, I don't really like the term female. It's misogynistic. Can you use the term woman? But I don't want to use woman because woman puts down. It puts us down because there's man in woman, and like it can just get silly, and that's not even in a radical way. But it's
Yeah.
just like you've been taught certain things and you're slowly trying to correct these little things in a person that they've just been using words, and it might not even be maliciously. Someone might have just naturally just been using female, and then it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's oppressive. You can't use the term female.
If someone jumps on every time a man says woman, says female, but is willing to put down another woman and willing to kind of gatekeep an opportunity or even a relationship because of, having a one-upmanship on a woman, they might think they're doing a feminist, good, but they're not. Because just jumping on a keyword isn't the same as actually changing your thinking and beliefs that actually side with feminism and sisterhood. It's not the same.
Mm.
So, like someone who never uses the word nigger, but every time they see like an interracial couple, they cringe, or they have like thoughts and ideas about, a different race, like, and they say, oh, well, I don't use that word. It's the same kind of thinking. Like, some people are very shallow, sad to say it, and that goes with their feminism, that goes with their political beliefs. But I can't think of another type of belief system or political thinking that has had as much misunderstanding as feminism.
Yeah, racism.
Misunderstanding,
Yeah,
though. I think
people
people know the
willfully
definition of
people
racism,
will.
whereas they
I
won't
don't
know the
think so.
definition of feminism.
I don't think people know the like because people simplify racism. So because black people are the worst affected by racism and white people are the least affected by racism, people believe a black person can't be racist to a white person. But by definition, racism is
It can
has
be, yeah.
is you can, but people don't understand it's a power dynamic. So black racism towards right racism, I mean towards white people, can't do anything to white people. So in terms of the power of black racism to white people, it's just name calling. All it can do is hurt your feelings.
I
Whereas
get you.
white racism towards black people can destroy lives, can destroy countries, can destroy your way of living. Like it's not just name calling and feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Like there's real destruction going on based on the racism. So in terms of the definition of like racism, it's very simplified when you read it. But when black people are protesting about racism, it's not about the definition, it's about the systematic oppression that racism causes.
But I think that gets more
It's multi.
attention. I think that's getting more attention than the, like, that is correct, and I do agree, but I think it's getting more attention on the complexities of it, whereas,
Yeah, but that's
yeah.
black people led when they talk about the complexities. When it's like white people saying, okay, we need to look like we're not racist. Okay, let's stop people from using the N word because that's a bad word and that hurts their feelings. And that is that because that's all that they can relate to in terms of racism. It's like name calling. So they're like, okay, they've thrown we need to stop them throwing making monkey chants at stadiums
Yeah.
because that's all that they know. They can't stop the systematic things that's causing the people in the crowds to make monkey chants when they see black people. They can't stop that because they don't understand the complexities of the system that creates those types of people that feel to come into a stadium and monkey chant at the players. So they don't know how to stop that, but they know how to stop or to come on and say, okay, the racism is the monkey chanting.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so it's
I
like,
just feel like someone would. I don't know. Like, I just think that if I sent someone a link about a feminist lecture versus a link about racial inequality and a TED talk about racial inequality or a TED talk about feminism, I just feel like the feminist one isn't going to get a look in because people already have their notion of bra burning white lesbians in their head and they just don't,
yeah, maybe. But then, like, it's feminism has taken it's gone like it's morphed into different things. So it depends on the type of feminism. It depends on the person because feminism, like, because people discuss now modern feminism, and
Yeah, this I don't really know much
modern
about.
feminism is more about women's their attitude towards life, like being less restricted. In because like they're like, okay, men can they think men can do what they want, like men can dress how they want, go where they want. They don't have to act classy. They can be boys and have laddish behavior. So modern feminism is like women being allowed to have that kind of lower standard of living and not be judged for it.
I think there's a lot of work to be done about raising the kind of knowledge base of what feminism is. Like if you look in America, like what's happening now with like Roe v. Wade, it's like I feel like there's still a lot of work to be done to understand like what sort of what sexism really looks like, you know, and why we think the way we do and really question it. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was actually like how how do you see patriarchy like playing a part in your life in a negative sense? Is there an aspect of patriarchy that you wish like actually I don't want that pressure or I don't agree with certain stereotypes about men that are placed on me? Do you ever like or is there anything you could think of that you think is it's unfairly weighted on you because of patriarchy?
Um, I can't because we live in like a country that's kind of free, where the pressure is put on yourself. It's not really the system. If you really want, like, if you're a feminine male, there's like there's avenues for you to prosper as a feminine male. Like you can be a female, or you can be a makeup artist.
No,
You
but being
can
a
be a
feminine male,
nurse.
still
You
being
can be a
still being what you're calling a feminine male doesn't mean that you have anti-sexist and feminist views. You could be a male nurse and still not side with like women who are trying to like raise awareness about fibroids and you know research that needs to go into it. Like
yeah,
you
but
might not be for the cause.
no, but I'm saying like when they say there's pressure in the society, like because you're asking me personally,
Yeah, yeah. For
I
your
don't
like,
feel that there is pressure because we live in like a so-called free society where you can pretty much do what you want. Like if you don't want to be a man that has responsibility, you don't have to be. And there's many men out there that have chosen not to be responsible, and we see that with men that have just run away from their children and run away from their families, leave their wives with and don't lose the house and lose the business. Like there's many men that just say, you know what, I can't handle this pressure, I'm gone. So we actually have that choice in this country. So I can't say that I feel that pressure because at any given moment I can just say, okay, I don't want to be responsible as a man anymore. Let me just get taken care of because it gives men that option in this country, just like it allows women to be masculine and be the head of the house in this country, and it allows you those opportunities. So I can't say that there is unfair pressure on men in this country, but maybe in other countries where gender roles are very specific, there might be more pressure. Like in certain other cultures, I'm not going to name specific cultures, but there are cultures where being a man requires you to do certain things that you're not allowed. I mean, that you could never do. Like you could never be a house husband in certain cultures,
Yeah.
and a woman in certain cultures could never be the breadwinner that goes out to work. And whereas in this country, you can do that.
Yeah.
Like there's not really a stigma if that's happening. Like you could get away with it.
So you've never had anyone stereotype or put any prejudices on you for
Yeah, more racial than
being a man?
men.
Yeah, you think so? It's
Yeah,
been more your race than
yeah,
your gender.
it's more.
No,
I
that's
don't think
interesting
that's
because of the whole you were joking about like trolling and stuff before, and for someone who's never like for example, you've never been like, it's hard to, I hate like bringing it back to this like very like basic examples, but like I don't know, like you've never had anyone like judge you off the back of, oh, you're a guy, you're gonna cheat, or you're a black man, so you're not gonna look after your children, or if you do, you're not gonna do it properly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The racial stereotypes are more than the male being a man stereotype, because it will just depend how you're acting as a man as to whether you get male gender stereotype. Like no one would gender stereotype me and be like, "Oh, you're like a lad that goes out and does all laddish stuff." I've never been stereotyped that way because it's just not my character. So I
What
think
about
men who are more like laddish will probably get stereotyped for being a man than someone like me.
so what about so obviously we had like well-being week some months ago, and like during that time there's definitely things that you learn about in terms of like well-being and options that were available to you in your workplace that were just never really made available and never like brought to your attention. you know do you not think that maybe there was something to do with like with just like not really making that as accessible as it should have been?
I don't think that was based on gender though,
No.
because it's like there's men and women that go to the that work at the workplace and go to the course. It wasn't gender specific.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a gender specific. Yeah, we need well-being for men, and we need men to talk about their feelings more. It's that wasn't really the case.
Okay. Well, when I'm talking about like patriarchy, it's not just like men and feelings. It's just this idea of some of it is a lot of like mental health, but it's just the very real things of like being stopped and searched, or being mugged, or like feeling like you kind of are in the wrong crowd, or like more likely to like get involved with certain things, and it's just like, or you're like more likely to be like put that pressure on you, like, oh, you're not going to do well in school, and someone like putting on their prejudices onto you.
Yeah.
But you say you've never felt that.
Yeah, because and also as a black male, patriarchy manifests itself differently because you're under a system of racism. Like the country that we live in and where we come from, they was built based on racism, not really patriarchy. They didn't go into
Yeah.
those
But
countries
sometimes it
and
does, it
say,
does go into patriarchy, because in some families it's put onto the male to like provide and not let the name down, and make something of themselves, and that could be a lot of pressure, because you could have one child that's a male that's not very academic and is maybe um you know doesn't doesn't really like naturally excel at school, and then you've got another child that may be female and they actually have the one that has the kind of they could prosper, but then you're putting all the pressure on the man, because you're thinking, okay, that's going to be like the future of our name, and they're going to be the ones to kind of carry the family name forward. But and you see that a lot, and it's like, okay, are we doing that subconsciously and putting that kind of pressure on boys? That was just my thinking. But you've never thought of that.
No,
I've
not
seen
experience, but like
firsthand with my family as well.
no, those things are like I think society is very patriarchy based. Like and depending on where you come from, it is. But in the grand scheme of things, so within your household, you might have like pressures put onto you by your parents as a man. Yeah, you've got to be a man. You've got to be able to provide. But you go out into the world of racism, where you're just gonna be given the crumbs. How do you then come back to provide for a whole family? It's like if you're the male that has to go out and hunt for food, but you're in a landscape where food is scarce. You when you come back, you can't you haven't got enough food for your 12 children. So you've got to cut the one piece of food to split by 12. It doesn't make you less of a man
Yeah.
because you can't provide. But you yourself you're not gonna feel the patriarchy of okay, I'm I'm the man, so like you just don't feel it as much, the pressure as much because of you've got other battles to fight.
Yeah.
So
Do you think there just switching gears slightly, but do you think there are men out there who say they hate is strong, but I'm going to use the word anyway, that they hate feminists, but they've never read a feminist book or listened to a talk or even had a discussion with a feminist, but they have it in their head that they're so against and objecting of feminism?
yeah, I think there's people out there like that, and I think that's because feminism it hasn't had like it needs an image. They need they need a
Need to
good
work on their
team.
branding.
Yeah, yeah it needs rebranding, and so many people have tried to rebrand it, and that's how it gets confused because it's been rebranded. So man haters of man have hijacked feminism, and they've used feminism and put their own agenda on it to hate men. Then you have the liberated woman that's liberated from like she wants to be sexually liberated. So she feels oppressed by society's pressures on women. So
Like
she
pro-choice and yeah.
so she's like attached her agendas onto feminism and saying, okay, look, yeah, I'm gonna be sexually free. That's my form of feminism. So everyone kind of attached is their kind of agenda onto feminism, and then depending what type of person you meet, you might not like the sexually liberated. There's men out there that are like, that's not ladylike to act the way that you're acting. So they'd be like, oh, that's feminism's fault. Look what feminism has caused. It's caused these women to be shaking their ass in public and have no decorum and just bring shame to my family because my daughter's walking half naked and things like that. It's like, yeah, see what feminism has caused, but it's not. It wasn't feminism. It was just someone that attached their agenda to feminism.
Yeah.
Just like the women who hate men, they're like, okay, I hate men. What movement can I use to hate men? And they choose feminism. Like, okay, I'm a feminist and I hate men. So
Same way
and
like
then
men who hate women can use like anti-feminists,
yeah,
and come out to be like, okay, I'm gonna persecute any feminist thought and shut it down because, I just hate women, so I'm just gonna detach myself from this cause for that, for that the opposite reason.
yeah, because like there's nothing wrong with feminism. It's usually the feminists that people have a problem with. Or that so if I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with a feminist, it doesn't mean that I don't agree with feminism. It just means that you don't want the problems that come with
But surely
dealing with
that's
someone
like
that
a type of feminist. Like that's like a broad stroke thing to say. Like I don't want to deal with a feminist because of XYZ, but you you're not even giving that person a
but I'm
chance.
sure people have because you can't just come to that conclusion. You would have had to have given a person a chance and notice patterns to be able to for something to become a red flag because something isn't automatically a red flag. You have
No,
to
but there
see
are people out there
patterns
who,
over and over
if
again,
someone
and
asks you,
then
"Are you a feminist?" on a first date, and some people, that's it, they've made their mind up.
no, but it's like a woman, like, so the first time a woman goes out and does 50-50 on a date, she might not see anything wrong with that because
Mm.
she has no prior experience of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then she dates 10 other people and they all pay. So now the next time she meets the person that's doing 50-50, she's going to be like, hold on, this is like not the norm. Like, men usually pay.
Mm.
What am I doing with someone that pays 50-50? When you
Mm.
know better, you now it's like, okay, 50-50 is a red flag for me now. Because it wasn't the first time she went on a date because that's what she first experienced. But the 10 times after that the person's paid, a red flag is now a red flag. When someone first meets a feminist,
Mm.
everything's probably cool
Mm.
because they don't know any better. But then certain things start happening and they're like, okay, this is a bit long. Things
Mm.
break up, meet another feminist,
Mm.
and you start getting into the same arguments and you're like, okay, hold on, this is like, I've seen this before.
Mm.
And by the time the third one's come along, it's like, nah, red flag. I haven't got time for this. I know what dealing or trying to get to know or dating a feminist brings. It's never
Yeah,
really a red flag from the jump. It's usually
I would hope not. But you seemed a bit more analytical in that you would give the chance. But I think there are some people out there who would make that. Um, they'll have a preconceived notion of what it means when someone says feminist, or if, like, say their mom all of a sudden starts saying, "Oh, I'm going to this talk. It's about feminism. I've been going for the last 4 weeks," and then that might conjure some ideas in someone's head, like, "Oh, why is my mom going to these feminist
so.
talks all of a
What does
sudden?"
happen at a feminist talk? What do they talk about?
I think they discuss things like
You don't.
news that's going on. Like, I don't know. That's why I say my
Yeah,
feminism is light, and why I say
yeah,
I'm
because they might actually be discussing things like, yeah, we should be able to wear no bras and walk around topless. You never know. That's
I
what
think
they
we're
might be
past I
discussing.
think we're past the comfort stage. I think the fact that women can choose to wear bras or not, and can, I think that's quite archaic.
Because you have to judge it by the young generation.
Yeah, I
So
think they're
the
talking
young
about things like what's
generation,
happening in the States. I think they're talking about things like the impact of women and mothers and stuff with the Ukraine war. I think they're talking about things like the cost of living and how that's putting us, things like lockdown and the role of women in the household, talking about domestic abuse, talking about anorexia, talking about depression. I think feminist talks
so
cover a
with the
lot.
with the thing about Ukraine, what do you think about the fact that the women and the children are allowed to leave, but the men have to stay? Because isn't that something that feminism would fight against?
Um, I mean, I think with that, it's the fact that men and women, like, at this point, they have a very kind of understaffed army, so they need as much manpower as possible to stay and fight, is my understanding. But also, if there were vulnerable men, you know, for different reasons of being vulnerable, different reasons of being less able to stay, and I think they should also, I think ultimately the fact that we're in a state now where you can have such like mass refuge from a war is miles better than what we had in previous wars in history. So that's already like a big win, in the fact that, like, actually now we can actually see in the time that it's happening refuge help actually being given. Um, and so we can actually see the real result of, okay, I'm booking an Airbnb, leaving it empty so that someone can actually seek refuge. I'm putting money towards this foundation, and you can actually see the results of it. But ultimately, I think, yeah, you're always going to get that, and you're always going to get people coming up with stories saying, "Oh, um, anyone that is of a different ethnicity is not getting, the same amount of like refuge, is not getting the same amount of like amenities as other people." Yeah, I don't think it's anti-feminist, the fact that women and children But I would say that if someone is as vulnerable, they should also be like first on the priority list as well. If they're like old or you know what I mean, like I think ultimate the idea is that the war shouldn't be happening, so that all these things to kind of take our attention away from that is just propaganda as I see it. Because I don't even know that's an absolute fact. We could be told about it, could be reported, but we don't actually know because we're not on the ground. And it could have happened and then maybe stopped happening, but people keep saying it's still happening. But ultimately, this war shouldn't be going on. So, in my view, it's that little glimmer of, okay, there's this bit of hope in what is the worst situation that we're in. So, yeah, that's what I think about that. And that's the kind of discussions I would expect to have at a feminist talk. Um, Yeah, because there's things that I don't know, and you know what I mean. Like I'm willing to be enlightened. I'm willing to have my mind changed. I'm willing to be curious and look into things. But but yeah, I've read a couple of books specifically about feminism, like when I was younger. Um, and then I've read books that I didn't realize were like feminist thinking until after, like books about women in tech and how, like, when they say like your average meal size is based on the consumption of men, and women are often not included when they come up with those averages. And so we're kind of just not really seen in terms of like tech sometimes. But yeah, I think my thing is like when someone just immediately objects to something that they don't understand. That could be feminism. That could, like we were talking about, that could be racism. It's that objection. It's that misunderstood objection that I really don't like. So I would, if someone said, "Oh, are you a feminist on a first date?" I would say yes, and I wouldn't even add the addendum of, because I agree with some feminist ideology, but I'm not 100% on everything. And I realize and I hold my hands up to the fact that there's still a lot of learning to be done. I wouldn't even give them that context. I would just say yes and see how they react. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brave.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be. I would expect, yeah, me too. Honestly, I don't even see it as being brave. I would just
No,
expect
it's
the
like
person to
it's
say,
like someone saying, "Yeah, I'm a Tory." It's brave.
well,
It's brave
well,
nowadays.
maybe if we go to, I don't
Even though
know,
the
a certain
majority of,
restaurant, I'm gonna
even
be like,
though
yeah, me too.
even though the majority of the country are Tories, which is funny. It's about like, yeah, because I see that when people's like, if you're a Tory or this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, it's funny, most of the country are Tories. Like, you really think that this Labour thing is it's a minority of people?
So where did you first hear about feminism? Like, do you remember
School,
where?
probably.
Yeah, like secondary. I'm guessing secondary when you had your subject options, or
Yeah, probably
before.
secondary school.
Yeah.
Probably secondary school, and they didn't teach it like a subject, but they taught about feminism, women's rights, because it comes with the oppression and learning about history. That would be in history. Yeah, and they'll be like, yeah, women couldn't do this. Women only had the right to vote. That was all part of history.
And it's interesting that most people's opinion of it when they first hear about it is around women's rights, and equality. But where do you think this man hating agenda comes in?
Yeah, like I said before, I think that's just people having their own agenda. So their agenda is I'm a man hater, but they can't say I'm a man hater. They have to hide it behind feminism.
No, but don't you think it's weird how we learn about something one way, but then as soon as we're told this other side, like say I'm 16, I'm exposed to feminism through history, through secondary school. Then I go to uni, I'm talking with people, I'm hearing, oh, feminists are man hating. It's like, why is my opinion just turned so easily without the understanding? That's the thing I don't get. Like with everything else in school, it's like, oh, I kind of learned about that war, or I learned about that crisis. I don't remember it being put in that picture. But suddenly with feminism, it's like, okay, let's flip it on its head. Like now it means feminists have nothing to talk about because women don't wear corsets and they can earn more money than men, and they are earning more than
Yeah,
men.
that's
Like
the
what else do
thing.
they have to be
Yeah,
angry
that's the thing
about?
about it's like feminism can be challenged now because it's like they can ask, in a society like ours, they can ask, okay, what rights do women not have right now? Like, what can't women do that men can do? That isn't like physically based. Like, what laws are in place that's stopping a woman from doing something? And
Or like
men
getting an
can,
abortion in the
and
US.
that's the US. That's when
Okay, you're
over
talking about
here,
UK.
yeah.
Okay, what
So
laws?
and men can point to things that women can do that men can't, and then they'll be like, okay, this is what feminism, I mean, this is why we don't need feminism. It's because now we're the oppressed. That's how men, and it becomes that argument. So like, I think that's why women, they cover their tracks with the feminism saying it's about the quality of all the sexes. Is because they're then supposed to fight for like men's rights, where men are putting forward that, okay, this is where we're being oppressed by the patriarchy system.
Hmm. So it
And
becomes a tit for tat
yeah,
almost, and continues like
yeah,
this
it's just a, yeah,
disparity.
it's a back and forth. So
Yeah.
feminism just becomes a, at this point, because women have advanced, it now becomes, okay, so what are you fighting for now? So certain agendas come up. So now the most common one you'll be seeing probably now, apart from the abortion one in America, is the safety of women on the streets. They're like,
Mm.
how can we keep women safe on the streets? But what would be the answer to keeping women safe on the streets? Because if a man
Yeah.
wants to attack a woman, he's gonna attack a woman. It's just unfortunate which woman it is. There's if they like, okay, we're gonna keep, we're gonna have a little bit of police presence here. Someone might just go to where there's less police presence.
Yeah,
So
but
how
I
do you
think
keep a woman safe? Because
keeping
to
women
keeping a woman safe
safe.
is to be like, is then becoming oppressive, because it's telling a woman you shouldn't walk by yourself. But it's like feminism has taught us I should be able to walk by myself. I shouldn't have to
Yeah, it
fear.
shouldn't. It shouldn't have to be tangible things like that. Like, what you should do. It's not about changing what people do or don't do. I think it's about changing the thoughts from a very early stage, like teaching feminist theory, like more integrated in school. Like the fact that we learn about it in history implies that it's something of the past. Like the fact that we actually need people to be thinking of these things now. There should be curriculums that include feminist thinking, and I think that would help in terms from a grassroots level, from an early education about just seeing women as equals, like, and if someone's going to do something, unfortunately, men rape men all the time as well, so it could be just an unfortunate thing that we are going to have criminals in our society. But in terms of keeping women safe, that would be one of my suggestions, like teaching inequality from a younger age. Also having just simple things like like safety, more lights. Like I know there's an area where I used to live, like they didn't care if the bulbs blew and there weren't like well lit paths to certain blocks of housing. And that's unfortunate because you could walk from your train station, and then as you get closer to your home, where you feel more relieved and relaxed because you're near home, that's where actually you're less covered, and you're kind of feeling more insecure. So that's, I think, will help women feel safe, and men, that if anything does happen, the fact that you're just lying there on the floor bleeding out, like someone can actually see you, someone
Mm,
actually can actually physically see your presence. Like I shouldn't have to wear fluorescent clothing when I go out at night, just to be seen. Like we need better lit streets, more police presence, maybe community police presence. Things like when I was growing up, things like neighborhood watch was a thing. I don't know if that's as prevalent now, and things like that. I can't remember the last time I saw a lollipop lady even.
mm,
Just general safety, not even just women but children as well. I think just general safety. I think there's a lot to be done, but then that breeds into a bigger issue about like community service and those kind of jobs, which are underfunded, and it's hard to make that decision. Yeah, so those kind of jobs are definitely underfunded, and I can see like no one wakes up and like, yeah, I want to be a community police officer. That's my life's ambition. You know, it's just kind of something you fall into. But yeah, everything kind of breeds into another problem that's there, and it's all about power and class and oppression. That's what feminists are still here to fight. That exploitation. There's still women being smuggled into this, men and women actually being smuggled into prostitution. You know, and it's not right. And I think as long as people keep asking what is there left for feminists to do, is more feminists need to actually be shouting and saying this is what we're doing.
Mm. So what if men like created a force to protect women?
Men create. What do you mean force?
So like neighborhood watch. So
Can you guys
there's
tell he's been reading
no
1984?
for no for like so there's like neighborhood watch.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an issue that's been brought up because near where I live is where the woman got kidnapped. The one that's kind of started this one. She got kidnapped by the police officer and killed. And then you got the woman that was killed in the park in Kidbrook, the
Mm-hmm.
teacher. And you've got this other recent one that was killed in East London,
Mm-hmm.
just randomly. So those incidents made national headlines. So people seen that. So men have got together and said, you know what, we're starting neighborhood watch for women. How would you feel about that? Like, there's just men that just want to see that women can get from A to B without harassment of men and stuff like that.
Mm,
Like, there's just men out there policing other men on their behaviors towards women.
I don't object to that. As long as like anyone can join that group, not just men. Because I remember sometime when I was at uni and I would say to my friends, a particular friend, I'd be like, oh, if you walk me home, who walks you home? And she would always be like, don't worry about me,
Mm.
you know. And but the thing is, like, yeah, like in any kind of community based group, and if men started, that's your question, I wouldn't object to that at all. Um, yeah, I wouldn't object to that. Because I remember when the London riots happened, and there were a group of boys in Enfield, specifically Enfield town, that came out to like defend their town centre and stuff like that, and it got a bit rowdy, but it was like on the community behalf. They were like, no, you're not gonna like loot our shops and vandalize our cars, etc. So yeah, I think people protecting their own communities, as long as they're not going about it to be like, oh, what opportunity can I have to expose myself to vulnerable women who actually think I'm here to do good. Let me join this community project to be a sheep in plain clothes, a wolf in sheep's clothes rather, and put myself in the exact position of people that are vulnerable, which we see in a lot of other things.
Mm.
People putting themselves in the exact position where they're there to help, air quotes, people that are most vulnerable. That's what I meant by that comment. But yeah, I think I wouldn't object to that if it's done. My thing sometimes is like when I'm on a night out, I often have friends that say, "Text me when you get home. Let me know you get home safe."
Mm.
And often, like men don't say that to each other. If
They
you,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
do they?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I
They
was a
do say
bit
get home
ignorant
safe.
of me to stereotype. But if I filter my WhatsApp on the word "I'm home safe"
Yeah.
to find how many times I've sent that to a friend, I do think it's more than if you filtered in your phone to say
I
"I'm
don't
home
think a
safe."
men would text
Okay.
a man, but they will say
Would you just look at
text
someone's
home.
last
They would
scene and then know, oh, they
no.
must have
They'll
got
be
home?
just like just be like get home safe.
Mm-hmm.
Get home like them. I think with the way the youngers are, they might text each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, text me when you're home because
Mm-hmm.
they're more in that interaction
Okay.
generation
All
where
right.
it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Snapchat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like,
snap me when you're home.
okay.
Yes, and yeah, let me know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might be more. Or with olders, they'll just you check you do check that people's got home safe. because especially if you've gone out and then like someone might be a bit drunk, so you want to know that they've got home.
But is it more that they've
but-
reached home as opposed to that something has happened on the way?
Yeah, the roads are dangerous. The roads are just as dangerous for men as it is for women. Because the
Yeah, I
same
know,
threats
yeah.
that are there for women, where women are like, once you leave each other, she could get attacked. A man can get attacked in the same way. Like there's no real difference because men get attacked by men all the time.
Yeah.
The only difference for women is that women also get attacked by men.
Yeah.
Whereas men wouldn't really get attacked by women. That's the only difference. But their attackers attack. They don't really discriminate against gender. It's just, okay, I'm going on the attack today, so it's whoever. That's why it's like... That's why people perceive that men might be safer on their own, but they're not.
Yeah,
because you can just walk into the wrong area and then that's it for you.
My point is that, like, if you are like going out with someone on a night out, I should say, just make sure like everyone gets home all right. It shouldn't have to be a gendered thing or the fact that so and so lives in this dodgy area, so let me make sure that she got home. Like, it could happen. Something could happen at any point. Do you think if I sent you some writing on feminism, you'd read it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not against... like, I'm willing to read anything that is enlightening.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm not easily led by propaganda. So I like to read what... like,
I did send you that Bell
perspectives.
Hooks article. You read that, didn't you?
Which one?
The one where she was saying that when she talks about cultural criticism and films, everyone can relate because they go to the movies. But when she talks about feminism, and it was just an intro to everyday feminism.
She felt that people couldn't relate.
Yeah, or that they had this preconceived notion of feminism. And so that was the reason why she wrote her book, which is like a little guide. It'll take you like literally a day to read it. It's just a really slim book about feminism and the movement and how it started. And it's what is interesting about it is that it's so... I think it marries so close to so many other movements that get shifted from the center and the core values. Yeah. Because you're going to have radicals and people who interpret and put their own agendas on something, and then you think that the whole movement is about that one thing. And most times it's the thing that has been watered down to become mainstream that people think is a representative of what actually is going on. Yeah. All right, so that was our take on it, and would love to hear what you think, what kind of ideas or opinions it sparked in your minds, and we can leave some links to some readings as well on feminism, and just keep the conversation going. I think it's something that's always evolving, and there's definitely more understanding to be had. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's a nice enlightening episode. I hope people can take something from it.
All right. That's it from us, and this is Gems
and Aries.
So we're Aries and Gems, and join us next time. Bye.